When was the last time you played a video game and found yourself playing for hours on end? There's probably a few games in the last 5 years, but I mean a game that pulls you in the second the intro screen plays. A game that for me was impossible to put down. A game that for me that was so addicting that I wouldn't stop talking about. A game that for me... You get the point. The game I'm talking about is Borderlands 2. My name is Tub, and today we're going to talk about how this co-op looter shooter game with wild jokes, unforgettable characters, and an insane amount of guns became my favorite game of all time.
No fiddlesticks.
Borderlands 2 released on September 18th, 2012 on the Xbox 360. Me and my brother were a bit late to the Xbox 360 craze, having gotten it in 2013, just months before the Xbox One released. Borderlands 2 was one of our first games on the console. Probably not the best influence for kids at the time, but my parents didn't know what was going on.
Oh, now I remember. Explosive!
The start of Borderlands 2 is really what reels the player in. At the start of Borderlands 2, the player takes on the role of a vault hunter. Handsome Jack, leader of the Hyperion Corporation, sets a trap, destroying the train they arrive on and leaving them for dead in a frozen wasteland. The player wakes up only to be greeted by Claptrap, a robot that makes you question how a robot could be so unbelievably stupid. I mean, this guy is a fucking idiot, dude. Holy fucking... Claptrap asks for the player's help and leads them to shelter while explaining that Jack has taken control of Pandora and is eliminating anyone who's against him. Now, I'm not going to go into the story of Borderlands 2 since if you're watching this, you've probably played it at some point. I don't really know why I like this game so much or why I kept going back to it, but I think the reason most people love this game so much is because of one person. Handsome Jack. At first, Handsome Jack comes off as incredibly annoying, arrogant, and pretty condescending.
I will pay you to kill yourself. I've got a perfect spot all picked out for you. And you don't want to? That's fine. Call the Hyperion Suicide Prevention Hotline and you'll get nothing. But if you want a huge reward, you jump off that cliff and become my bitch. Take your time.
But as you learn about his connection to Angel, and by extension, the horrific things he inflicted on his own daughter, his true nature begins to show.
You seriously thought you could hide from me, Angel? Is that what you thought? Say goodbye to your friend, Angel. Say it!
He's not outright evil, he's just a man driven by a compulsive need to do terrible things, backed by a distorted sense of justification. Jack is a realistic villain because he isn't a mindless monster. He's a man with understandable motives and pretty human-like flaws. It allows you to hate him in ways you understand and have experienced before. Handsome Jack is the guy who had his own grandma executed. He's the guy who belittles others to feel superior, while relying on them for everything. He's the man that enslaved his own daughter. It's impossible not to hate him. Looking back, I realized that Borderlands 2 left such a deep impression on me, not just because of its humor, its action, or its gameplay mechanics, but because of how masterfully it wove its narrative around such a complex antagonist. Handsome Jack's character forced me to reflect on the nature of good and evil, making me question the thin line that often separates heroes from villains. It's rare for a game to offer such a nuanced portrayal of morality, and it's even rarer for a villain to feel so real. So human. That's why, even after all these years later, Borderlands 2 remains my favorite game of all time, and why Handsome Jack stands as one of the greatest villains in gaming history. Borderlands 2 was a huge part of my childhood since it was the only game I kept going back to even after all these years. Playing this game with my brother was fun as hell. We went from fighting over which one of us should be Zero to who should have the stronger weapons. This game was a blast every time for us. Until it wasn't. He eventually grew out of liking this game and moved on to other things. We had beat this game so many times that he eventually just got burnt out. Only problem was that that never happened to me. The game didn't feel the same to me after I didn't have anyone to play it with, which made me no longer like the game. Now you might be thinking, why not just play pre-sequel or Borderlands 1? How about you mind your fucking business for once, huh? You fucking pussy. After dropping the game for a few years, I then came across a whole new avenue of the game. Challenge runs, baby! Yeah! Challenge runs aren't for the weak. A challenge run is essentially playing the game again, but with a twist. For example, One Life, melee only. Playing the game with a fucking power glove? What? You get the point. I never really liked Let's Plays. Maybe it was my shitty attention span, or the fact that every Let's Play feels the same. Watching guys like Dude and Killer6 attempt these absurd challenges really brought back the spark the game once had for me. And I found myself playing it again. Seeing them push the game to its limits made me appreciate Borderlands 2 in a way that I hadn't in years. And suddenly, the game felt alive again. It reminded me why the game hooked me in the first place. The Vault Hunters, the world, the absurd situations. It all works together in a way that's just fun. Watching those challenge runs made me realize I hadn't lost that feeling at all. I just needed a reason to dive back in. And the thing is, it's not just nostalgia. Even now, the game has this energy that's hard to find anywhere else. Every mission, every side quest, every weird little encounter can turn into something hilarious. And that's what I love about Borderlands. And it's not even just the characters or the guns that make it feel that way. The music plays a huge role in it too. Every track, from the intense battle themes to the quieter, almost eerie moments, perfectly sets the tone for whatever it is that's happening on screen. Borderlands 2 just has a sound to it that matches it perfectly. It's not just background noise, it's part of what makes the game stick in your head even after you're done playing. The music in Borderlands 2 is incredible, and while Jesper Kid really captured the vibe of Pandora with his tracks, even the songs he didn't compose still fit the world perfectly. Right now, the song playing is How You Like Me Now, and it nails the vibe Borderlands gives off. He's worked on big franchises before, like Assassin's Creed and Hitman, but Borderlands 2 gave him the chance to do something totally different. And you can hear it in the way the battle tracks drive fights forward, keeping the pace intense without ever feeling like it's trying too hard. Even the quieter, ambient tracks carry that same kid attention to detail, making areas like Sanctuary, the Dust, or the Highlands feel alive and distinct. And even the small, almost unnoticed touches make a difference. A quick riff when a badass appears, a subtle melody when you stumble into a hidden corner, or the way the music shifts during a boss fight. All of it adds layers to the experience. The soundtrack gives the game a sense of personality without ever being showy about it. It's this attention to detail that makes Pandora feel like a real place. The music is still one of the things that makes Borderlands 2 feel special, and it's a huge reason why playing the game never really gets old. And the coolest part about all of that is how the music works with the chaos of the game. And that's the thing about Borderlands, it's hard to put down. Even years later, everything about it is addicting, from the characters to the world to the music. But suddenly, it became hard to go back to Borderlands 2. Let's fast forward a bit to September 13th, 2019. The day Borderlands 3 released. Having loved the series, I'd beaten all the previous games, so of course, I had to pick it up on launch day. And I want to start this by saying, this is my personal experience from launch day. Some of the things I noticed may not be how everyone else sees the game, but like many others at the time, I didn't immediately love it. The humor felt different, like it was holding back in ways the previous games never did. And honestly, it almost felt like a version for kids. And half the time, the jokes didn't even land. The story didn't hit the same, and there weren't as many characters that felt as memorable or relatable as in Borderlands 2. And I'm not trying to bash it, but this is just how it felt. And at first, it honestly felt like a downgrade compared to the series that I had fallen in love with. But even with that, I found myself playing it, because at the end of the day, it was still Borderlands. And that was enough to keep me going. The thing is, after experiencing Borderlands 3, going back to Borderlands 2 is honestly harder than you'd think. The movement, the gunplay, pacing, 3 just feels smoother, faster, and more responsive. So when I returned to 2, it felt heavier, slower, and suddenly some of the things that never bothered me before stood out more. Even though I love Borderlands 2 so much, experiencing 3 just reinforces why 2 means so much to me. And if you haven't played anything Borderlands, I'd highly recommend playing Borderlands 2 first, as it's what introduced me and many others into this beautiful franchise. Now that I've had time to play this game to its fullest capacity, I can appreciate what Borderlands 3 has brought to the series. I now see that Borderlands 3 is a great game. 3 has a lot of great things going for it. The variety of weapons, the new environments, the way the world feels bigger and more alive, and the freedom the gameplay gives you to approach fights in different ways. It's just a different kind of fun. And I highly appreciate it for what it is, but that contrast makes it almost a strange feeling. Borderlands 3 may have felt like a downgrade at first, but it also showed me how much Borderlands 2 defined the series. And despite the challenge of going back, that only makes my love for 2 even stronger. The story, the characters, the world, it's unmatched, and nothing else comes close. Thinking about all this made me realize just how much the Borderlands community shaped the way I came back to the game. Dude and Killer6 in particular. They were already pushing the game in ways that I hadn't seen before, finding new challenges, experimenting with mechanics, and making everything feel unpredictable again. So I actually reached out to them to hear more about their experiences. I wanted to see how Borderlands has impacted their lives, and their answers were honestly really interesting.
Borderlands 2 is an amazing game. Whether if you play it casually, it can just be a lot of fun, or if you play it a lot, there's a ton of replayability to it. There are super fun challenge runs, there are really cool mods being made by the community, and of course, the Borderlands community itself is one of the main reasons I love Borderlands.
Borderlands 2 is always going to be one of my favorite games of all time. The looting, the shooting, the story, Handsome Jack, everything about Borderlands 2 is great. It's one of those games you can go back to at any point and it doesn't really feel dated. Well, unless we talk about like endgame and some of the balancing choices that were made with OP10, but that's not important. What is important is that you can come back to Borderlands 2 at any point and it feels like home.
Very special thanks to Killer 6 and Itude for not only taking the time to talk about their experiences, but for going out of their way just to record something for this video. It really means a lot, and I could not be more grateful. I also want to thank you, the viewer, for listening to me ramble about my favorite game. I'm making this video today because I'm both excited and afraid about the future of a franchise that's meant so much to me. And with the impending release of Borderlands 4 and all these trailers, I can't help but wonder what will become of Borderlands. Hopefully Borderlands 4 put a good end to the franchise, or maybe even expand on it. I don't know what they should do. I'm not a fucking writer or anything. But whatever happens, know that this message comes straight from the heart. Thank you, Borderlands. Thank you for all the memories. Thank you for making so many people around the world laugh. And thank you for making this kid laugh.